Hi everyone, welcome back to Let's Play ChäoS. How foolish. You sure you haven't been reading too many novels?
映像に映っている被害者5人の顔は一致しているんだ。あれが5年前のもののはずがない。
So he said, as I lowered my volume.
そんなつまらないことを調べている暇があったら、聞き込みの一つでもしたらどうだ、警部補。
ああ。
今のは聞かなかったことにする。それと、後で話があるから会議が終わったら残りたまえ。
Bun let out a small sigh, gave up, and sat down. Well, it wasn't like he thought anyone would believe him. Lethargically waving his fan at himself, he inwardly muttered sour grapes. That said, Bun himself hadn't determined the answer to why rather, the video didn't show Roppongi bills. Who knows? After I found out that Nanami was alive, a doctor came to me and asked me a number of simple questions. They were questions to determine whether or not my condition was back to normal. As I answered half-heartedly, I made the decision to leave the hospital before my mom arrived. How could I possibly face my family after having been shamed in front of the whole nation? Besides, if Nanami came, I was positive I'd be overjoyed and start bawling. And without any idea of how I felt, Nanami would yell at me, straight-faced, saying, "Don't make me worry so much, you moron." When I envisioned that scene, I almost fainted from embarrassment. As a result, I decided to beat a strategic retreat before I fell into such a situation. After nibbling a little bit of my horrible breakfast they gave me, I furtively left the hospital room. I descended to the first floor and crossed the lobby. Since the hospital hadn't opened yet, the lobby, which was normally bulging at the seams with old people, was now quiet and still. I managed to breeze out through the front entrance. Fortunately, the automatic doors opened properly for me. The nurses and physicians, physicians, who might get angry at me for slipping out of my. Alright, this isn't gonna work, is it? Blah, 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 blah. The nurses and physicians might get angry at me for slipping out of the hospital room on my own. I said hospital room, it said hospital, yay! But all I had to do was avoid going back there until things cooled down. There shouldn't be any issues with the hospitalization fee, since I'd left a note for my mom with, "Please pay them later." Though I'd spent the night at the hospital, I felt physically fine, and psychologically, knowing that Nanami was okay had made my gloom lessen considerably. Proceeding with great care, in case Shogun and Yua were lying in wait for me along the way, I hastened back to my base. I'd come back. My emotional state was utterly different from when I'd left here last night. Of course, now I felt refreshed. In fact, I wanted to say a word or two to yesterday's self. You take the bait too easily. Meh. None of me's gonna be okay, even without you freaking out like that, lol. That kind of thing. But yesterday had been really tough. Anything and everything had been tough. In the morning, there was that weird phone call. An earthquake took place. My hard disk data got cleared. I've been forced to witness IS's failed suicide attempt. Shogun had emailed me. He'd sent me a severed hand. Ooh, boy, that was weird. A severed hand. My hyper mood drained away in an instant. I swallowed jerkily and cast my line of sight at the fridge. Oh, fuck me. That hat was in there. Yesterday, before leaving here, After considering what to do about it with my discombobulated mind, discombobulated corpse terminization, urbanization, oh, I stuck the hand in the fridge for the time being. If I left it hanging around outside, it might rot, and the smell of blood would lie thick. Sci-fi anime and movies often use the premise that people can remain in a state of apparent death for hundreds of years as long as you keep them frozen in storage. Yes, but that's frozen, not cooled. In a word, I'd landed on the same sort of idea. Yesterday, I'd honestly thought that once Nanami was safe, if her hand was preserved with even a little of its former freshness, maybe they could surgically reattach it. I doubt that, since you didn't freeze it, you dumb shit. If it weren't Nanami's hand, whose could it be? And how was I supposed to account for the cell phone and the bangle? Unless my eyes were mistaken, those definitely belonged to Nanami. When I called her, it had connected me to the cell phone in the hand's grip. Or else, everything, those parts included, was part of the trap Shogun had lit for me. Was it really possible to so perfectly replicate Nanami's arm?
もう一度確かめてみるべきかも。
Although I seriously didn't want to. A human hand? Disgusting. Recalling it nearly made me throw up, even if it were Nanami's. But simply because of that, I couldn't let it stay in the fridge for who knew how long. At this rate, I wouldn't be able to chill my coke either. For a second, I thought of giving it to the police, but on second thought, they suspected me of being the new gen perpetrator. Under those circumstances, it would be suicidal to call 911 and tell them, please take a severed hand for me? What should I do? Maybe I'd throw it away. But I felt like it'd be bad to chuck it if it were Nanami's arm, hypothetically speaking. For starters, was it okay to throw a human hand in the garbage? If you were going to, did it belong with the burnable garbage, unburnable garbage? I scratched my head. Nothing would come of pondering it. For now, I should take a more careful look at the bracelet the hand was wearing and the cell phone it held, to see whether they were Nanami's or not. I stood in front of the fridge and gripped its handle. I closed my eyes and took 2 or 3 deep breaths. I was tempted to call Rimi and have her examine it in my place, but I soon chased away that temptation. Rimi might be my ally, but finding a human hand in my fridge would make anyone pull back. If I screwed up, she might grow wary of me and send me back to the police. My only option was to do something about it myself.
くそ。
I grit my teeth. I took another 2 deep breaths. And my mind made up, I pulled the handle. Empty!
あれ
Duh! It was an illusion. It's a fantasy, baby! It's a fantasy! Gone. I didn't spot it anywhere. The hand that I definitely put in here yesterday. A hand wrapped in aluminium foil. I had left it on the top level, yet not even a shadow of it remained. In the fridge were several plastic bottles of Coke and some rotting clementines. That was all.
消えた。なんで
It had unexpectedly vanished. I crouched and peeked all the way to the back of the fridge, but it still wasn't there. Anyway, I couldn't have overlooked it, given that there wasn't much in here, and it was mostly empty.
昨日ここに入れたよな。
Or had I just made myself think that, and in reality, I had left it sitting out? I closed the fridge and looked around the trash-strewn room.
段ボールもない。
The large cardboard box that the hand had been put in. What had I done with it yesterday? I had a sense that I'd tossed it into the corner of the room, but At any rate, my memories of last night weren't very clear, because yesterday had been more eventful than my brain capacity could handle, not to mention that each event had made a huge impact on me and had been out of sorts from start to finish. Calm down, cool your head, and try to get organized. Let's think about why the hand had been there yesterday is gone. I started up my word processing software and began writing up a list of the various possibilities that occurred to me. My base had been unlocked ever since yesterday, so anyone could have entered without much difficulty. In fact, that was precisely why Shogun had been able to leave the hand in my room. Or was it two? I didn't have clear memories of when I left here to get to O Front. My feeling of I have to save Nanami and the fear of Shogun that came when I saw the hand. In any case, a range of emotions spiraled in me, filling me to the brim. I hadn't been cool-headed at all. Maybe I had unconsciously taken a hand with me when I left and had thrown it away in a trash can somewhere. Alternatively, I took a sip from my Coke. Alternatively, everything about the hand had been a delusion. In truth, it had never existed to begin with. But when I opened my email, yesterday's mail from Shogun was still there. All the stuff about his present to me whatnot was written there, plain as day. Besides, Shogun himself had referred to the hand yesterday. I had a real hard time thinking of it as being a delusion of mine. What about the possibility that the police or the media had taken it? They look at otaku creeps like me with contempt, so the chances of that might be unexpectedly strong. I was scared to go online after yesterday's events. Even so, I couldn't keep from wanting to see for myself, and I opened my browser. I began by looking up the main page at Taboo, plus the news sites I've usually frequented. As expected, there were a bunch of articles lined up about yesterday's bedlam at the pedestrian scramble. The airwave stealing ESPer is an Akiba type feral boy. An ESP show by a young new generation boy reached its curtain call in the worst manner possible. Hearing that a magnitude 5 earthquake had taken place in Shibuya around noon on the 27th, MHK, BTS, and TV Yuhi broadcast special reports, while TV Today and Mount Fuji TV decided to simultaneously provide a live broadcast of his show, starting at around 9 p.m. However, protest calls soon began pouring in, let down by how he had dodged its promises. Approximately 5,000 fans booed for over an hour in the Shibuya Station Plaza, and fights also broke out between them. It resulted in 13 arrests. The, dis- the disturbance began with a prank email from Boy N, a Shibuya resident and a self-proclaimed ESPer. His email, in which he declared he would use clairvoyance to determine the culprit in a brutal series of incidents currently taking place in Shibuya, aka the New Generation Madness, initially gamered skepticism among the broadcast stations he sent it to. However, when the American physics investigator Yuri Brightman contacted them, stating that he was Boy N's guardian, TV Today and Mount Fuji TV believed him completely. For both TV Today and Mount Fuji TV, the broadcast rating peaked at over 40%, a shocking number that surpasses their popular year-end programming. While this must come with the caveat that it is ultimately a number derived from a broadcast that aired around the same time as the programming related to the earthquake, it cannot be said that the decision to go ahead with the broadcast did not lead to rating success. However, Boy N was not an ESP or anything of the sort. He riled up viewers by showing signs of being about to jump from. What? He riled up viewers by showing constant signs of being about to jump from the building countless of times, but his performance ended there. Dissatisfied, reporters charged the roof in an attempt to at least obtain some kind of commentary about the new gen cases, but that too misfired. It is said that the boy collapsed on the roof, holding a cosplay costume from a famous Hollywood movie, as well as a Moe anime figurine. According to Professor Hashiba Yoshiro of Akemasa University, an expert on otaku culture, there are an increasing number of youths who have heroic dreams without a thought for the trouble they might cause for those around them. Influenced by anime and games, he must have lost the ability to distinguish between fantasy and reality and began to actually put his dreams into action. He'll need psychological care. Whatever else, this was a case of most peculiar false alarm. I hadn't emailed the media. I'd never seen Yuri Brightman's TV show, and naturally I knew not a thing about him. What could it all mean? Everything had been arranged by Shogun after all? What for? He talked about a quest or something, but what was to be gained by pushing me to get a D sword to the point of making the media feature me in a live broadcast? I didn't understand what Shogun wanted to do. He'd even let Nanami go with her life. I followed the links to read all kinds of articles, but not one of them touched on Shogun. There had been almost no time gap between when I barreled at Shogun and the mass media came rushing in. Even if Shogun had used that time to flee, he would without doubt have been spotted by the media. It was still more inconceivable for someone in a wheelchair, that is, Shogun, who wouldn't have been able to use his leg freely to escape the scene in such a short period of time. Furthermore, I took a look around Achan. As I predicted, things were going wild in there. They repeated my real name over and over. Hmm. What?
鬱だ。
They were all saying whatever the hell they wanted, taunting me without any idea of how I felt. Achan was scary when it turned against you. Because it's full of fucking retards, duh. Shogun was to blame for this as well. That aside, I thought underground news that they couldn't show on television would get posted on Achan, but I didn't spot anything of the sort. Nothing was going around about how there had been one more person on the roof of the O-front besides me. Almost as though, yes, almost as though the person called Shogun hadn't been there from the start. Maybe the Shogun who appeared then had been no more than a phantom of the real Shogun. Even if his existence were certain, it was also possible that the Shogun who'd been at the O-front was a delusion I'd created.
僕はやっぱり病気なのかも。
What the fuck? This camera is making me fucking sick. It's panning so weirdly, it really makes me scared as fuck. What the hell, dude? Seriously, the panning is so bad. Look at this shit! Only things that should have been impossible realistically speaking kept happening to me. It was like a game. A world where Nanami had died, and a world where she was alive. Like the two of them stood side by side, and I had the option to pick either one. Similar to the decision points in an arrow game, the future branched infinitely. The difference between me and an ordinary people was that I had delusions of the choice that leads to an unhappy outcome and could simulate the events to come. Such as an event when Nanami died, or when Ayase jumped to death, or when I fell from the roof of the Ofran and died. In short, The unhappiness that visited me over and over, as though someone had planned it out, might in fact have been a mental trap I had laid for myself. In the midst of a boring and unchanging everyday life, I wished to emigrate to a world as stimulating as a game, and I unconsciously showed it to myself in the form of delusions. Impossible. I didn't possess any such desire. At least, I'd say an instant no thanks to any simulation that would scare or sadden me.
っていうか、どれだけ想像力豊かなんだよ。
Even all the things I was thinking of now were ultimately no more than idiotic childish delusions. What the shit, dude? I've got this feeling this face is gonna appear here, like, above us, like, yo, what's up, dude? I sighed and leaned against my chair's backrest, looking distractedly up at the ceiling. Reality was indeterminate. Everything began to appear like a lie. The world I called I was so hollow. New Jin 第6の事件が28日、渋谷区の渋谷川で20歳女性の変死体、自らの右手の肉を直接食べ、骨のどに詰まらせたことによる窒息死。New Jin's sixth case happened on the 28th. The weird corpse of a schoolgirl in her 20s was found in Shibuya's river. She had eaten the flesh of her own right hand. The reason of death was suffocation.
今日午後8時ごろ、渋谷区の渋谷川で女性の変死体が発見されました。被害者は江戸川区に住む十勝あやみさん27歳で、死因は喉を詰まらせたことによる窒息死とみられています。警察の調べによりますと、被害者の右手の肉が削り取られて骨が露出しており、また胃の中からは人間の肉とみられる内容物が見つかりました。被害者は自らの右手を噛みちぎって食べたとみられ、また足首が紐で縛られていたとのことです。警察では自殺・他殺の両面から捜査を進めています。
I'll see you guys next time, and thank you for watching.